Welcome into 49ers Access. My name is Sterling Bennett, and today we are asking one of the most pivotal questions thus far through week one of the NFL season, heading into week number two for the San Francisco 49ers, and that is, should they be worried? Should we be worried about Christian McCaffrey's health? Now, some may say no, some may say yes. I think Christian McCaffrey's injury is certainly worth diving into because at the moment, he's already missed one game. He missed the majority of training camp. He missed all of the preseason. Again, has already missed week number one. And according to NFL Network's Ian Rappaport, he's a long shot to play this Sunday against the Minnesota Vikings. So it seems as if Christian McCaffrey is going to miss not just one game, but now two games with a calf injury that has since been upgraded to a calf injury with Achilles tendonitis. That's scary. That's worrisome for me. I'm sure it's worrisome for Christian McCaffrey. I'm sure it's worrisome for the San Francisco 49ers. But how do you feel? Because at this very moment, I'm a little worried about what's going to transpire with Christian McCaffrey in the 2024 NFL season. Like I already said, he missed almost the entirety of training camp. He missed all of the preseason, and he's already missed one game and heading towards missing a second consecutive game due to injury after missing not a single game the past 2 years with an injury designation. So seeing CMC's name on the injury report is a big deal, especially after winning the Offensive Player of the Year award last season. To say I'm worried may be an actual understatement in the case of Christian McCaffrey's health. We all know CMC, one of the best players in the NFL, one of the best offensive players in the entire league, and arguably the most important offensive player on the San Francisco 49ers. And that's despite what Jordan Mason did against the New York Jets just a handful of days ago. 28 carries, over 145 yards, one touchdown, could have been two. Thank you, Deebo Samuel, for a holding call on Sauce Gardner. But despite what Jordan Mason did, the San Francisco 49ers are going to need Christian McCaffrey healthy if they want to not just go to, but ultimately win the Super Bowl this season. Hence why they're taking the cautious route with his recovery. But this is where things get muddy and a little scary. Who's to say the calf or the Achilles injury, which he was supposed to play Monday against the Jets, apparently it flared up on Friday, went into Monday for treatment. It was a little tight, hence why he was inactive or labeled inactive late in the evening on Monday, just before kickoff. Who's to say that doesn't flare up again? Who's to say that the Achilles injury or the calf injury don't get worse or stays the same, meaning he misses more time throughout the season? Now, I'm sure you're thinking of an Achilles injury. That's terrifying. Anytime an Achilles injury is involved, my mind goes to the worst possible outcomes. Kevin Durant with the Golden State Warriors, last year Aaron Rodgers. All it took was one simple cut, and boom, it's a rupture. You miss 1 year, you miss 2 years, and sometimes, in a handful of players' case, it is a season-ending or career-altering injury. That's what we're dealing with here. That is the end of the line, worst of the worst-case scenario possible for a player like Christian McCaffrey. And take it even further for a second, he's not playing quarterback. He's not playing offensive lineman. He's playing running back, which maybe outside of receiver and cornerback are two of the most pivotal positions that utilize the lower body. When you're cutting, running routes, jumping through the tackles, trying to find 1 or 2 extra yards after contact, your body's up against the worst possible scenario of you are going to have to utilize your legs more than almost anybody, utilize your calves and your Achilles more than almost any single position. I guess one good thing is the injury is not exactly new for Christian McCaffrey. He suffered the injury late last season during the playoffs, but within that, it's not new. Okay, he knows how to handle this somewhat. He played a handful of playoff games with the injury and looked fine, right? But Then he had the entire offseason to heal, recuperate, and hope tendonitis goes away, to hope that the calf injury would stop swelling, would be able to take on a heavy workload like we've seen the past 2 years. But that's not the case. In fact, it's only gotten worse to a point of, while Kyle Shanahan may say, if it was a playoff game, he'd be out there. Well, you don't have the playoffs for 17 more weeks. So I get you want to play cautious with him. I'm all for that. You never want to risk further injury to the reigning offensive player of the year when you don't have to. I'm cool with that. 100% on board CMC not playing Monday against the Jets, and from what it seems like, not playing this Sunday against the Minnesota Vikings. But when you realize you had 3 months of no contact, although you're working out, again, no contact, it's lighter workouts than it is during the actual NFL season. It's simply just staying in shape and gearing up for another workload like CMC's had the past few years. It flared up again. There was no rest. There was no, okay, I'm good to go this season. In fact, you're missing games, which is not what transpired last season. What happens if CMC's running through the tackles? Is that then going to flare up or makes it cut up field? Could it get even worse? That's my concern. Now, to be honest here, I am a pessimistic kind of person. I can understand, let's save Christian McCaffrey for when it actually matters. Well, in these games, week 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 may not exactly matter. San Francisco plays the Vikings this week. Then they have the Rams, who are already banged up. Then they have the Patriots and the Cardinals. Can you survive without Christian McCaffrey for a handful of weeks? Sure. But you also need Christian McCaffrey out there. I firmly believe San Francisco's method in keeping Christian McCaffrey healthy is a good one. Be cautious. Limit how much he sees the football. Have him not play in the preseason. Have him limited in training camp, off to the side field doing his own drills away from the entire team. I'm cool with that. Thumbs up. I believe in what San Francisco is doing, and I also believe in Christian McCaffrey's ability to keep himself healthy, to know his body better than anybody else. But we talked about this when San Francisco acquired CMC. Now, CMC in 2020 and 2021 had a ton of injuries, missed a large chunk of games. That was not the CMC I believe they were acquiring. It isn't the CMC I believe they currently have in the red and gold, but calf injuries have happened for him in the past. He's missed a lot of games with the Panthers in 2020 and 2021 because of calf injuries. Now, we chalk that up to the COVID year, not having the exact same method of workouts and not really, being able to do everything he needed to get his body ready for the NFL season. That seems to still be the case, but that doesn't mean there isn't as much worry or fear that this thing could linger the entirety of the 2024 NFL season and beyond, not to mention, and rightfully so, you just paid Christian McCaffrey even more money by redoing his contract, so you guaranteed more money for a player that's already injured. You want to have him on that field showing his worth, and you're kind of paying him for what he did the past 2 years, winning the Offensive Player of the Year, fine. But you want to make sure CMC's ready to go, hence why he's probably not going to play this Sunday and didn't play against the Jets. But Christian McCaffrey is arguably the second, maybe the most impactful offensive player on the Niners right now. You can argue that without Christian McCaffrey, even despite what Jordan Mason did against the Jets on Monday Night Football, their odds of winning a Super Bowl decrease mightily. Their odds of even making the Super Bowl go down a substantial amount. And you do not want to risk in what's been heralded as a last dance effort. This could be the last opportunity with this core of players to win it all. Now, we have no idea if that's going to be the case, but let's just say it is hypothetically. No CMC may be synonymous with no Super Bowl victory. That's how serious this thing can be. But like I was saying earlier, can San Francisco survive a handful of games without Christian McCaffrey? Yes. Jordan Mason against the Jets was awesome. He showed that he can be an RB1 in the absence of CMC for a few games here or there. But my concern is it's a calf injury, it's long term, or it could be long term. So, what if it is long term? Do you believe Jordan Mason, that has never carried the ball 12 plus times more than once in his NFL career, can say or can play, let's say, 6 to 8 weeks without CMC? I love Jordan Mason. I've been one of the people clamoring for him to get more reps the past couple years, but he's not proven to be a lead back just yet. It was a great game against the Jets. We cheered for him. I am all on the Jordan Mason hype train and have been for a while. I love him being the RB2, being a piece within the arsenal alongside Christian McCaffrey of Kyle Shanahan's offense to alleviate CMC's workload. I'm cool with that, giving him 5 to 10 carries a game to allow CMC to get a rest. That was the plan coming into this year, whether it was Elijah Mitchell, Isaac Guerendo, and now Jordan Mason. You want to have that bigger bodied, muscle bruising bell cow back. But my concern is, can Jordan Mason's body, because it has never been proven to do so, whether it was in college or the NFL level, to be able to play that Kyle Shanahan level of offense where he wants to run the football 30, 40 plus times a game? I'm not so sure. I hope he can. I want him to be. That offers up so much more for this offense. And it's not just going to be Jordan Mason, but let's take Isaac Guerendo, for example. Isaac Guerendo has already missed time with a groin injury and a hamstring injury during the offseason program and preseason. His entire collegiate career was hampered with groin and hamstring injuries. And going back to college at Louisville and Wisconsin, he's never carried the football over 130 times in his career. Now, he may not have to if CMC's out. It could be 80 times. It can be 90 times. But let's say Mason can't carry the entire load himself. You go to a 2 running back system. It's not as if either one of these guys, Mason or Guerendo, despite how much I or you or we like these players, they're unproven. Now, you hope they can prove themselves. Sometimes when someone else goes down, the person behind them proves to be awesome. Hence Brock Purdy. When Jimmy Garoppolo went down, when Trey Lance got hurt, it felt like all hope was lost, and Brock Purdy is now going to be a franchise quarterback earning probably $60+ million a year. It's not to say that Guerendo or Mason cannot answer the call if Christian McCaffrey's hurt. It's just to say that if Christian McCaffrey isn't out there, you're already seeing a decreased level of play, despite what Mason did on Monday against the Jets. How can that be carried over into week 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 if CMC misses time? And take it even further than that. What if Christian McCaffrey comes back for weeks 3 through 8? Then post-bye week, there's some injury concerns. He misses games against the Bills and Packers in Buffalo, in Green Bay, in December. Can Mason and Guerendo, who at that time will probably be somewhat banged up — the NFL season never has a player completely healthy, ever — are they going to hold up? There's no promise anybody ever holds up. That's why CMC's injury is such a concern, and that's why the last 2 years have been this anomaly of, oh my goodness, CMC is a literal machine. Go back to Thursday Night Football against the Seattle Seahawks last year, where they're tightening his helmet. He looked like a machine. What he's done the past 2 years should not be understated in saying that he hasn't missed a game, and the only game he actually did miss was because they were resting starters against the Rams in Week 18 last season. But behind him, it's not this proven commodity of, oh, we have a clear-cut RB2. Mason could certainly answer the call. We're all asking and hoping for that. But I do think San Francisco should be a little worried. I do think that while we don't want to admit this, there is a serious concern about Christian McCaffrey missing a large portion of the 2024 NFL season. And although there's plenty of belief in players like Jordan Mason and Isaac Guerendo, there's still a lot of uncertainty in Mason and Guerendo's ability to stabilize the running back room behind CMC if he misses time. We all want to push back against the week one overreactions. Mine was the Cardinals are going to be a lot better than people think. Yours may have been Caleb Williams is a bust. I obviously wouldn't go that far, but week one overreactions are a thing. I don't think I'm overreacting here to week one. I think the overreaction for San Francisco would be is Jordan Mason legitimately going to be the RB1 of this team or can be for the long haul if CMC misses time? Whereas I think a serious, legitimate issue question mark is can CMC actually play, 12 to 18, 16 games this year? I don't think the answer is yes in either one of those cases. And that's scary, but both those are yet to be proven, which, again, hence why I'm concerned about this. But let's leave the concern behind us for a second. Let's do our best to make sure Christian McCaffrey is healthy to pair him with Jordan Mason. So, how do we find ways to preserve Christian McCaffrey's health? The obvious and clear cut answer is a decreased workload. Dating back to 2022, CMC has carried the football 516 times. That ranks second behind Derrick Henry. Christian McCaffrey last year ranked second in carries behind Derrick Henry in 2023. And since 2022, the year he became a San Francisco 49er, he's touched the football, receptions and carries 668 times. That again is second only to Derrick Henry's 690 total touches. And it doesn't take a genius to say Derrick Henry's body is clearly built a lot different than Christian McCaffrey's, and he can carry that workload. Whereas Christian McCaffrey, smaller guy, lankier guy, a lot faster, and their play styles are different. Derrick Henry's a freaking brick house. He's the Incredible Hulk of the NFL. He can take that beating and continue to keep moving. Whereas Christian McCaffrey, you're like, wow, he's a workhorse. He's awesome. Inevitably, things are going to arise like this calf and Achilles tendonitis injury that you have to take account for and say, how can we make your life and eventually our lives easier as the San Francisco 49ers? So one is making sure he's not touching the football anywhere near that 300 to 250 mark. Make him as efficient, make him as dangerous, just in shorter spurts, smaller sample sizes, if you will. The other help to this is having Jordan Mason back there. I know I pushed back on Mason being this amazing RB1 talent, or kind of pointing towards he's likely not going to be what he was against the Jets, against the Vikings, Rams, and so on and so forth this season. But that doesn't mean you just forget about what he did. What Jordan Mason did was awesome against the Jets. The Jets are a darn good defense, and it should not be erased or forgotten how great Jordan Mason was against, again, a top 10 defense in the New York Jets. Hence why once and whenever CMC returns, if it is week 3, if it is week 4, if it is later in the year, you have to continue to give Jordan Mason reps. And that also includes in little short spurts as well, even Isaac Guerendo. You have 3 running backs, Jordan Mason, a UDFA, who again was stellar. I think has proven the past few years to be very viable and very able to be leaned on in late game situations. Get yourself a lead with CMC and close the game out with the closer, as CMC called him, in Jordan Mason. Isaac Guerendo, a 3rd round pick. Again, the injury history is there, but that isn't to say he cannot be utilized in the screen game or coming in to relieve Jordan Mason or Christian McCaffrey in certain games this year. You have the ability to, like Kyle Shanahan said in training camp, in preseason, in OTAs, they want to decrease Christian McCaffrey's workload. You have the tools behind him. Deebo Samuel as a wide back, Jordan Mason, Guerendo, to make Christian McCaffrey healthy all year long, or for the majority of the 2024 NFL season, by utilizing Jordan Mason, Deebo Samuel, and the players behind them to take McCaffrey off the field for a handful of snaps. It doesn't have to be 20. It can be 5, 8, 10, 12 carries a game, where CMC's carrying the ball 12 times or 15 times to Mason's 10. Christian McCaffrey's catching the football 5 times a game while Mason's in the backfield doing some dirty work. There are ways to make this thing work with a 2 running back system, which sounds crazy knowing you have CMC, but they have to pivot currently because of the injury. I think should pivot because of how good Mason was against the New York Jets. I also think that taking the weeks into account, for San Francisco this week, it's a short week. In a couple weeks, when they're playing on Thursday Night Football, it'll be a long week. Take those things into account. Monitor Christian McCaffrey's health throughout the entirety of the year. If it's a short week, decrease the workload. If it's a long week and he feels great, increase the workload. When he's fresh, utilize him. When he's not 100%, Mason, get out there. Guerendo, get out there. Deebo Samuel, be the wide back for a handful of snaps. I also think, and this comes into a factor this Sunday against the Minnesota Vikings, take playing surface into account. As Niner fans, we are all jaded to MetLife Stadium's turf. We watched Nick Bosa, we watched Solomon Thomas, we watched Jimmy G, and Raheem Mostert all go down in one single game and ruin the revenge tour that was supposed to be 2020. The last thing anybody wants to see is any player get hurt on artificial turf. This Sunday against the Vikings in Minnesota, it's artificial turf. You have to take those things into account as well. Make sure McCaffrey is playing on a safe playing surface, not a let's, fingers crossed, hope this thing can be good enough to keep him healthy. I think you have to play this thing smart. You have to handle this thing with kid gloves. Don't get too crazy with it. You want to almost be like the helicopter mom of like looking at every single aspect, every single fine line, never leaving, for the sake of a meme and Spaceballs. You want to comb the desert. You have to comb these playing surfaces to make sure that Christian McCaffrey's calf and Achilles are going to hold up when they go out there on Sunday, Monday, or Thursday. Going into this even further as well, you have the variations of the workload. I think getting Christian McCaffrey in space on screens rather than just jamming him over and over and over again between the tackles, where you have defensive linemen that are 325 plus pounds and linebackers that are going to fall on your calves, hit you in the Achilles. Like Aaron Banks got kicked against the Jets and his calf and had to come out. He's probably going to be fine. But the last thing you want is CMC, going forward on 3rd and 5 or 2nd and 6, goes in between the A gap or right in between the defensive tackles, and all of a sudden he gets kicked or fell on. Okay, he's going to hobble off the field, and you're going to say, oh, crap, what did we just do to him? There's always a danger in playing football. Always. It's never going to be as simple. They can take all these ways to preserve Christian McCaffrey's health into account, and he still get hurt, but that doesn't mean you don't want to play this thing as safe as humanly possible. Hence why taking into account playing surfaces, long and short weeks, utilizing Mason and Guerendo, getting Christian McCaffrey in space rather than between tackles. That stuff is going to help him stay healthy, hopefully, for the long term. And also, like I already kind of stated earlier, utilizing him in the receiving game rather than strictly a running back. Get CMC in the slot receiver role. Roll out 4 wide. Jawan, Deebo, Aiyuk, and CMC, or even Kittle out there. There are ways to get CMC in space. You can keep him on the field, but while still utilizing him as a decoy or having him be a check down in the slot receiver role. You can still utilize him, just in smarter ways to keep him upright the majority of the year. Me and you both know Christian McCaffrey is the best offensive player in football, not named Patrick Mahomes. He is the most important player to this offense, likely not named Brock Purdy, which the quarterback is obviously the most important position in football, and maybe Trent Williams. You can even push to say Christian McCaffrey is more important than Trent Williams on this offense. We have seen the heights they have taken, the projections they have because CMC is here, and you've seen the offense have increased numbers per play, touchdown totals, scoring points. Because a player like CMC is here, he has to be healthy if they want to win a Super Bowl. That's the only case unless Jordan Mason becomes CMC 2.0. But I told you during the preseason that I thought Jordan Mason could be the Michael Turner to Christian McCaffrey's LaDainian Tomlinson. Now's the time to almost utilize Jordan Mason as Michael Turner. Let him be the bell cow between the tackles, strong nose, head down, always falling forward. Back to LaDainian Tomlinson, phenomenal player, one of the greatest running backs of all time. In my case, probably the best running back of the 2000s. He was that great. Christian McCaffrey at this point in time might be one of the best running backs of the 2010s or 15 to 2025 when inevitably he calls it quits, right? So it's not as if Christian McCaffrey isn't in that same tier as LT, although LT is probably head and shoulders above him. There's similar play styles, and the way they can utilize McCaffrey with Jordan Mason are very similar to how the Chargers, when they were back in San Diego, could utilize Turner and LT. San Francisco has the methods in place. They have the doctors. They have almost everything you would need to preserve a player like Christian McCaffrey. They have everything you would need to keep someone like Christian McCaffrey healthy all year, to ease his workload, to make his life easier and take stress off the calf and the Achilles. We've seen even last year, whenever you see a player with lower foot injuries, it's concerning. Achilles is kind of the new ACL, if you will, or you go back a decade and a half, if you tore your ACL, it was over, it was night and night, your career was done, kaput, which made a return like Adrian Peterson's so astonishing of like, he didn't miss a beat, he got better, he got stronger. The Achilles, although isn't as severe, if you will, as an ACL, it's almost, whenever you get the Achilles touched up, take Aaron Rodgers, for example. You don't know what you're going to be. There's still a touch and feel, touch and go with the Achilles. Your cutting's different. The pain tolerance is different. You lose your Achilles in the NFL, it's not usually going to go well for a player that's a running back. Rodgers is a quarterback. He's not going to have to cut as much, not going to have to run as much. You can be a statue-like quarterback in the NFL and throw for 4,000 yards. That can still happen. A running back, you need to be healthy in your ligaments, in your ACLs, in your joints, in your Achilles to maintain the level of play Christian McCaffrey was and has been the majority of his career. So I think Christian McCaffrey and the San Francisco 49ers need to continue to monitor his injury and how this thing is going. I want them to monitor this thing as closely as humanly possible. And I can tell you that while, yes, I have the belief and the hope and the faith in CMC coming back and being healthy and being this offensive player of the year kind of player, and even Jordan Mason stepping up in his absence, I believe in those two things that can come true and be awesome and great for this team. I'm worried about Christian McCaffrey's longevity, but I hope I'm wrong. I really, really want to be wrong in this case, because if I am wrong, well, I mean, honey, you can start talking about number one seeds and Super Bowl stuff, but if I'm right, we're talking about, how can San Francisco survive not just one game or two games or three games? We're talking 6 to 8 weeks. And if worse comes to worse, we're talking ruptures and season-ending stuff, which is just nasty and dirty, and no one ever wants to talk about those things. So I'm hoping San Francisco is playing this thing as safe as humanly possible, because everybody wants to see Christian McCaffrey out there. But let's say Christian McCaffrey misses more time. It's not just going to be on Jordan Mason. It's going to be on Deebo Samuel, who was a major factor in Monday's win against the Jets. Going to be on George Kittle and Kyle Juszczyk. But mainly, it'll be on Brandon Aiyuk and Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy was good against the Jets. He'll need to be better if Christian McCaffrey isn't out there every single game. Let's say it's against the Chiefs. Let's say it's against the Bills and the Packers, like I already said, in December. You can think what you want of those teams, but nobody ever wants to go to the East Coast in December. It's cold. It's snowing. Brock Purdy, in a handful of rain games, has not been the same player. All that is to say, they'll need a little bit more from Brock Purdy, which I believe in Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy's going to be awesome. But you also need Brandon Aiyuk to step up. You want to make the passing game more explosive if CMC is not going to be out there. Whether you or I like it a lot or at all, you take CMC out of the fray, San Francisco's offense becomes less dangerous, which means more stacked boxes, which means Brock Purdy having to carry a heavier workload. That's the case. You need a little bit more from Brock Purdy, or at least more than what he showed against the Jets, and more of what he showed last year, which I firmly believe is still in there, and he'll pick things up this Sunday against the Minnesota Vikings. But how do you feel about Christian McCaffrey's injury? Are you worried at all? Does he need a few weeks to get healthy and that's it until he's unleashed over the NFL once again? Tell me what you think down below in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, leave that review to the audio platforms and here on YouTube. But mainly, again, tell me how you feel about Christian McCaffrey's injury. Are you worried about longevity this year? Is it just a 1 to 2 week thing? And once he's out there, there's no worries at all? Do you think this is a massive issue for San Francisco going forward? Tell me down below in the comments, or you can hit me up on social media at 49ers_access is the X and the Twitter. And you can go to our Instagram, 49ers.access, DM me, at me on Twitter. Let's talk about CMC's injury. If you want to go see San Francisco play this year, maybe it's with or without Christian McCaffrey, does not matter. Go to SeatGeek.com, find the seat you want. If it's green, that means it's a great ticket. If it's red, don't buy those ones. Go find you some more green seats on SeatGeek.com. And when you go to checkout, use our promo code 49ersaccess. 49 ERS ACCESS at SeatGeek.com to save yourself $20 off your first purchase. And if you're like me and you love fantasy football, we have a special offer for you. We are now partnering with Locker. The Locker app is the easiest, safest way to play fantasy football. It's also one of the most fun. If you play Yahoo, you play on ESPN, those things have their hindrances. If you want to make some money, you have to go talk to your friends and use PayPal and Venmo and Zelle. None of that has to take place if you use the Locker app. Our league has a $15 buy-in with an escalating jackpot starting at $450. And once you get 30 plus people in that league, it goes higher and higher and higher. The top 3 scorers win at the end of the NFL season, and you can make money each and every week using the Locker app. Some of you use Underdog, some of you use DraftKings. Go over to Locker, get the app in the App Store, join the league, 49ers Access, and let's make some money and enjoy the NFL season together. And if you also hate having to find all of your articles, podcasts, and YouTube videos in all these different locations, go to sportspyder.com. They're going to have you covered, putting everything you want regarding your favorite NFL team, MLB team, NHL team, if you like those things, all in one place for you, categorized by your favorite team. If you want the latest from Schefter, Pelissero, Garofalo, ESPN, Sporting News, wherever you find your sporting news, it'll be all in one place for you at sportspyder.com. Thank you so much for watching, listening, and if you're on the podcast platforms, give us a 5-star review and tell us what you think of the episode down below. But mainly, and as always, if you can, my name is Sterling Bennett, and until next time, stay faithful.